I used to think love stories only happened to people who went looking for them. But mine began on an ordinary Tuesday, standing behind the counter of a flower shop, surrounded by the scent of roses and lilies, and silence. My name's Ethan Rhodes. I'm 34, live in Portland, Oregon, and I've been running a small flower shop called Bloom Street for the last 7 years. If you walked by my shop, you'd probably see me standing by the front window every morning, trimming stems, misting petals, or just thinking. To most people, flowers are for birthdays, anniversaries, or apologies. To me, they were a kind of language, the only one I could still speak fluently after losing the person I loved most. You see, when my wife Lily died in a car accident 5 years ago, the world didn't stop. It just went quiet. Everyone said time would heal me. But time doesn't heal. It just dulls the edges until you can pretend you're okay. So I poured everything I had left into that shop. Every morning, I'd make a single bouquet, not for sale, not for anyone I knew. Just for a stranger. I'd look out the window, see someone sitting alone on a park bench or walking home from work, and I'd send them flowers anonymously. No note. No name. I didn't do it for kindness. I did it because I knew what it felt like to need proof that someone still cared, even if it came from nowhere. There's this office building across the street from my shop. Every morning around 8:30, I'd see the same woman sitting by the third-floor window, coffee in one hand, eyes on the screen, shoulders tight like she'd already fought a dozen battles before the day even started. She looked exhausted. Not in the way people look after a bad night's sleep, but in the way people look when they've been carrying something heavy for too long. I didn't know her name, but I started noticing little things. She'd always bring her own mug, chipped on one side. Sometimes she'd smile at something on her screen, but it would fade before anyone saw. One rainy Thursday, I made a bouquet, soft whites and light pinks, lilies and peonies, the kind Lily used to love. I wrote a note that just said, "For the days that feel too heavy, you're not invisible." Then I called a courier and sent it to that office building. No signature. From the shop window, I saw her receive them. She looked confused at first, then touched the petals like she was trying to remember something she'd forgotten. And when she smiled, even just a little, something inside me shifted. I told myself it was nothing, just another small kindness. But I kept sending them. Every few weeks. Different flowers, same quiet hope that maybe it made her day a little lighter. A month later, she walked into my shop. I didn't recognize her right away because she looked alive. Her hair was loose, her eyes were bright, and she was holding a small card. "Hi," she said. "I'm Maya. I'm trying to find out who's been sending me flowers." I froze. I could have lied, but something about her voice, soft but searching, made me tell the truth. "It was me," I said quietly. "I just thought. You looked like you could use a reminder that people still see you." She laughed, this half-nervous, half-relieved sound, and said, "That's the strangest, kindest thing anyone's ever done for me." We talked for an hour that day. About her job in finance, how she hated spreadsheets but loved photography. How she used to take pictures of sunsets before she stopped having time for things that didn't make money. When she left, she said something I didn't expect. "Maybe next time, don't send flowers. Bring coffee instead." And just like that, I had a reason to cross the street. For the next few weeks, we met every morning before work. I'd bring 2 coffees, one black for me, one oat latte for her, and we'd walk to the little park nearby. She'd talk about her childhood in Denver, her dad teaching her how to ride a bike, and her mom's old camera that she still kept in a box somewhere. And I'd tell her about the shop, about how my wife used to name the plants like they were pets. We never talked about pain directly, but it was always there, under the laughter, in the pauses between words. One morning, she asked, "Do you ever wonder if it's possible to love again after you've already lost the love of your life?" I didn't answer right away. Then I said, "I think love doesn't end when someone leaves. It just changes shape." She looked at me with those searching eyes, like she was trying to read the truth behind my words. And for a moment, I think she did. Just when everything felt like it was slowly mending, the past caught up. One evening, Maya didn't show up at the park. Or the next morning. When I finally saw her again, she was standing outside the shop, eyes red from crying. "I need to tell you something," she said. "I wasn't honest with you." She told me about her ex, Daniel, a man she'd been with for 7 years. They'd broken up after she found out he'd been unfaithful, but he'd been trying to get her back. That week, he'd shown up at her apartment, saying he'd changed. She looked at me and whispered, "I thought I was over him. But part of me still wants to believe he's telling the truth. I don't know what to do." And I just stood there, silent, because I knew what it meant to love someone who's already gone in spirit but still lives in your heart. I told her, "You don't owe me an explanation. You just owe yourself peace." She cried. I wanted to reach out, to hold her, but I didn't. Because sometimes, love means letting someone walk through their storm alone. After that night, she stopped coming. The park bench stayed empty. The coffee cup on my counter stayed untouched. Winter came early that year. The shop felt colder, quieter. I went through the motions, arranging flowers, greeting customers, but everything looked gray. Then one morning, I got a delivery order through the website. No name, no address, just instructions. Send 12 white roses to Bloom Street. For Ethan. I stared at it for minutes before realizing what it meant. When the courier showed up, there was a note tucked between the petals. "Thank you for reminding me what it feels like to be seen. I had to find closure before I could find you. M." She came back in April. The first thing she said was, "I took a job in Seattle. I almost didn't tell you because I was scared you'd say not to go." I laughed softly. "I wouldn't have said that. You deserve to live your life." She smiled, stepped closer, and said, "I went. And I realized something. It's not the city or the people that make you happy. It's who you become when you stop running from yourself." And then, finally, she kissed me. Not the kind of movie kiss that fixes everything. The kind that feels like a beginning, quiet, hesitant, real. Spring had finally arrived in Portland, that gentle kind of spring where everything smells like rain and new beginnings. One Saturday morning, I was unlocking the shop when I saw someone standing by the window. She had her back to me, wearing that same long tan coat she'd worn the first time she walked in. "Maya," I said softly. She turned around with a smile that felt like sunlight after a long storm. "I didn't know if you'd still be here," she said. "I never left," I replied. "Bloom Street doesn't run itself." She laughed, but her eyes were shining with something else, something fragile and real. She told me she'd spent the last few months in Seattle getting her life back together. Therapy, new job, rediscovering the things that made her happy. But every time she passed a flower shop, she thought of this place, and of me. Then she reached into her bag and handed me a small photo. It was a picture of a single white rose sitting on a windowsill, sunlight spilling across the petals. "I took that the day I left Portland," she said. "I wanted to remember what hope looked like." I didn't say anything for a moment. I just took her hand, gently, like I was holding something breakable, and said, "You don't have to remember hope anymore, Maya. You brought it back with you." And just like that, everything that had been broken between us slowly started to heal. Maya started helping out at the shop again, at first just part-time, organizing displays, talking to customers, learning how to care for orchids and tulips. She said flowers made her feel like she was part of something alive again. We fell into a rhythm that didn't need labels or promises. Morning coffees, quiet walks home after closing, laughter that came easier with each passing day. But one Friday evening, while we were rearranging a shipment of roses, she looked up at me and said, "Ethan, I don't want to spend my life waiting for someone to tell me they love me. I want to choose love every day, even when it's scary." I froze, scissors still in my hand, petals falling onto the counter like confetti. Then I said, "Good thing I'm standing right here, waiting for you to choose me." She smiled, that same quiet, knowing smile I'd seen from the window months ago, and whispered, "Then I guess we're both finally home." We didn't plan a big wedding. We didn't need to. We got married right there in the shop, between the rows of lilies and hydrangeas, under a wooden arch that I built myself. Our closest friends came, along with a few customers who'd somehow become family over the years. Maya walked down the aisle carrying a bouquet of wildflowers she arranged herself. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "You once told me love doesn't end, it just changes shape. I think I finally understand what you meant." And I told her, "So do I." When we kissed, the whole room smelled like spring. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel the weight of loss. Just gratitude, for second chances, for patience, and for the quiet courage it takes to start again. A year later, Bloom Street was busier than ever. Maya had turned the back room into a small photography studio where she took portraits of customers with their flowers. She called it Stories in Bloom. Every morning, before opening, I still made one anonymous bouquet, a tradition I couldn't let go of. Sometimes we'd leave it at a hospital, sometimes at a park bench, sometimes at the doorstep of someone who looked like they needed to believe in kindness again. But now, I didn't do it out of loneliness. I did it because that's how our story began, and because I wanted someone else out there to feel what we did, that maybe, just maybe, love can find you when you least expect it. On our first anniversary, Maya gave me a card that said, "Thank you for seeing me through the glass. For every flower, every silence, every chance you gave me to bloom again." And beneath it, she'd drawn a little white rose. I looked up at her and said, "You know, the flowers I sent, they were never just flowers." She smiled and replied, "I know. They were the start of us." Sometimes love doesn't arrive with fireworks or fate. Sometimes it's just a quiet man behind a flower shop window, and a woman who forgot what it felt like to be seen. We both carried our grief into that little shop on Bloom Street. And somehow, among all the broken stems and falling petals, we found something worth holding on to. Love doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. And if you listen closely enough, you'll hear it, blooming softly, even after the storm.